Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everybody. My name is Vanguard Wonder, and welcome back to another video. Now, I know it's been a little bit. I hope you guys have been enjoying the Cardfight videos I've been uploading. I'm glad I was actually able to get those done. But we are approaching the end of 2020, and I thought, what a better way to end off the year than ranking the meta decks that we've had throughout this year. Now, obviously not all of these are meta. Some of these were just fun decks, some of these were just cool decks at the time, and some of those were the decks that somehow lived beyond their original point. But I thought, why not come in here and give my personal opinion as to what I think was good, as to what I think was bad, and we can have a little discussion about it. I feel like it'd be fun. Now, let me bring up a few things. Number one, I do not have any Bermuda decks in here. That's because I believe Bermuda has a tier all on its own and should be ranked separately. Number two, obviously I'm not going to be taking every single deck we've had so far. Like for instance, if you look down here, there is no blasters except a Majesty Lord Blaster somewhere in here. I think he's in here. If not, oh here he is. He's right there. But yeah, I'm not ranking blasters. I'm not ranking Novas. I'm not ranking Beast Deities. And this is only of the decks of this year, meaning I'm not including any clan selection plus stuff, any Sanctuary Guard, stuff like that, no other Bermuda stuff. That will all come in its own time. These are only the decks that I feel like have been very popular throughout this year and have either just arrived through a new set that came out on the 18th, I believe, or that, like I said, live beyond their due point. But without further ado, let's get into the tier list. Now, for the tiers, we have Unbeatable, S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, and Rogue tier. I use letter tiers because they make more sense to me, so just bear with me here. Now, for our first spot in the Unbeatable zone, we have the coronavirus. Corona is still here to stay until we can figure out some way to do it. And with that in mind, keep a mask on, use hand sanitizer, practice social distancing. I shouldn't have to tell you this, but here I am doing it. Now, let's get into the actual tier list. For the first, we have Asha. Now, Asha came in with the Try 3 trial decks and the next stage extra booster set, I believe it was, and it was a very, very threatening deck for its time. Because not only did it take the plant tokens that Neonectar was so accustomed to, and switch it up to the Asha plant tokens, where you basically copy the Vanguard. It was like a better Blade Master of its time. But it was extremely threatening and built for the Force 2 mechanic. But over the time, I feel like it kind of decreased as, you know, power creep is a hell of a thing. And because of power creep, I don't feel like it's as good as it was anymore. Feel free to prove me wrong by any means necessary, because I still think Asha is a cool deck. But until the new Neonectar stuff comes out, I'm gonna put Asha in a nice A tier. Not too bad, as I think it's still a pretty good deck, but there's definitely stuff better than it. Next we have Altmile. Altmile I think is a really cool World Paladin deck. I love what they did with the Grade 2 mechanic, where you basically swarm your field Grade 2s and you attack for big numbers and big criticals. But I think I'm going to put Altmile in the B tier, because while Altmile can be very threatening with over 40+K attacks and with double, sometimes maybe even triple critical if you go Force 2 with it, it's not a very good defensive deck. It doesn't have many defense options, which will leave you get pummeled by some decks like Draconic Overlord or Luar, stuff like that. It doesn't have very good survivability, if you will. Now, another deck I want to go over here, which is my fine weird, is the Ancient Dragons. The Ancient Dragons I'm actually going to put in a Rogue tier, because if you build Ancient Dragons well enough, it can actually be a very semi-threatening deck. Because all you need is a nice board, one front trigger, and your opponent is in trouble. Now, it's obviously not going to beat any of the meta decks here, because, you know, they're meta for a reason, but I feel like it's a very good inclusion. It's a nice rival to the Blue Wings. By the way, I hope you guys enjoyed that Blue Wings versus True Ancient Dragons video, because I thought that was very cool. Next up is Big Belly. Big Belly I'm going to put in the A tier, because I feel like Big Belly was overhyped to a degree. I think people were just excited when it come out, then they saw its skill, they thought it was really good, and don't get me wrong, Big Belly has a good skill, I like the way it plays, but I feel like it just didn't match up with what we had. Luard was still topping, Draconic Overlord is still one of the best decks, and now we have Gurgit coming in. Don't get me wrong, Big Belly is a great deck, I just don't think it was as good as it could have been, or as good as people thought. Definitely not bad, let me reiterate myself here. It's not a bad deck. If you want to play it, it's very viable. Next up is Blade Master. With Blade Master, with the addition of Soin in was it Silver Dust Blaze? I'm actually going to put Blade Master in A tier as well, because it's still a very good deck, but it has, well, it has problems with survivability just like Alt Mile does. It has a bit more survivability than Alt Mile, because with you're basically giving up 2 cards to go get double Twin Drive, you hit for big numbers, and you basically board wipe your opponent almost every turn, as long as you keep your chosen units on the field. And with that, I just think it's really good. Plus, you can mix it with Waterfall, and it gets really dangerous. Next up is the Phantom Blaster Overlord, put in C tier. We all wanted this card to be good. It got hyped to high hell. I wanted it to be good. I have like a couple copies of it on myself, just for nostalgia reasons. But it's just not good. And I hate to say it too, because I want this thing to be good so far. Next we have Blouse. Blouse I'm putting in the Rogue tier as well. Now, some may argue I could actually put this in an actual tier, but I feel like Blouse is a really good sub-archetype deck. Because while we have Victor and Beast Deities now coming out, Blouse was a punch in the face with how good it was for having just a triple rare unit, and putting the deck together, it's amazing. I love Blouse. I love Blouse ever since it came out in the original version. But it is definitely no more than a rogue deck, much like Ancient Dragons. While it's very threatening at times, it doesn't last as long as meta decks do. Next we have Chronojet. I'm going to put Chronojet at S tier. Sure, maybe it's kind of fallen off now that we have... I think I punched my mic there, sorry. It's kind of fallen off now that we have Luard and the Overlord and Gurgit, but I still think it's one of the top decks out there. It was topping in tournaments for a reason, and I still think it has that very good niche to it. Next we have Clarid Sword Dragon. Clarid Sword I'm going to put in C tier. Clarid Sword, even with the addition of Cyan, that promo that I don't know if we're ever going to get, is still it's a very fun deck, but it's not going to win you anything major. If you want to like start learning how to play Vanguard, I feel like Clarid is one of the good decks to start out with, because it's a very simple mechanic and it's not hard to accomplish. You may win like a match here or there in your local tournaments, but no regionals. Deleters, trash. I forgot to add a trash tier, but if I could, this would be trash. Because hopefully Starlight Soldier Chaos Breaker will maybe do something with the Deleters. I don't think it will. I think it'll be its own deck. But if it does, maybe it can bring Deleters back to where it was. Because even when Deleters came out, it wasn't that threatening. Because all you could do was simply re-ride, and there was no problem whatsoever. Especially since Standard rewards you for re-riding your grade 3s. So it's really no issue whatsoever. And it got kind of threatening with the re-standard, but even then, it just wasn't great. Next up, we have Ezel. Ezel on B tier. It's still a nice rush deck with Platina doing its special drive check shenanigans. And with some of the generic stuff that came out with the Gurgit support, works pretty well in Ezel. I certainly think it's a very fun deck, very great. Fenrir, also going to go to C tier. Again, if there's a trash tier, I could. Fenrir, we all hoped would be great. And in some cases, it's like Clarid. It may win you a match here or there because of, I don't know, maybe your opponent braked, or maybe you just did something really good. But it doesn't have enough consistency to get you through a whole 4 rounds or a whole 8 rounds, wherever you go to. Next up, we have Gaia, otherwise known as Tachis. I'm going to actually put him in A tier. Now, if we didn't get Anger Blader back to 4, I would have put him at C tier, because with Anger Blader to 1, it doesn't do much. Sir Sweeper, Sweeper, I was just going to call it that. I'll put the card up here so you know what I'm talking about. But Sweeper is the main problem of the deck. I still have no reason, they still have no reason why they banned Anger Blader. There's no reason to ban Anger Blader. He was not the problem, but now he's back at 4. Tachi is once again a great deck, and we're going to put it at a nice solid A tier. Next up, we have Gauntlet Buster. I'm putting Gauntlet Buster in the whole Eradicator archetype up at S tier. This is just the Narukami standard with Eradicator. This is one of the decks that I want to point out that I think lived past what Bushi intended to live by. I think they tried to power creep Eradicators and Narukami in general, but they just couldn't, because you just bind the entire front board and you get plus 5,000 power and plus 1 critical for every open rearguard circle. That hurts, especially if you're playing Excel, because if you're generating your own front row units, it's just Narukami is broken, is what I'm trying to say. And now we have the Blood coming. I don't know what the Blood's gonna do, but hopefully it does something cool. Gavriel, I'm gonna put in a nice B tier. It's not a horrible deck, but it's not a great deck. when I first saw this guy, I thought it was gonna be pretty cool, but when I saw the testing, either by myself or by other players like Top Deck Heroes, Freedom Duo, just it didn't live up to expectation, because it plays with your damage too much, if you know what I'm saying, because you're constantly dealing yourself 2 damage, and you have to hope you get triggers on those 2 damage just so you have some sort of pressure, and if you don't, you're basically screwed for the entire game. Alright, Grand Gallop, also trash for the C tier. C tier is now trash tier, let's put it like that. Gridora, I'm going to put A tier because Gridora is a very good control deck. If you're looking to play a control deck in Cardfight Vanguard 2020, soon to be 2021, play Gridora because it is the best way you are going to want to control your opponent. It's also if you want to be a dick, really, because you basically just delete a rear guard, and whenever they retire, because they're going to have to retire units to keep up pressure, you add that to your hand. It creates a massive hand advantage, and is one of the very few protect decks that make use of the crit sentinels, the 30k crits, and I just think it's a very fun deck all around. Gurgwit, obviously S tier. We know why this deck is S tier. It's just all around amazing. I love that Gold Paladin's getting love too, because while Ezel may not be as great as he used to, Gurgwit's a nice substitution, and we're getting Spectral Duke Dragon in February, I think? I don't know. But Harry we're gonna put in A tier. Harry is a very actually I know there's a friend of mine who watches my channel who plays Harry. He might argue this with me. I'm gonna put Harry in B tier. For the sole reason I put Harry in B tier is because what's his name? Starry Pop Dragon is such a very situational win condition to get. Don't get me wrong, Harry on his own can work fine, but when your win condition is a grade 4 that you can only get by calling a grade 2, it kind of limits the deck a bit too much. Now, I am a bit upset we were not getting the Masked Phantom Harry, I think his name is, in Clan Selection Plus. Instead, we're getting Nightmare Dolls for whatever reason. But, yeah, Harry, like I said, just very it's a very limiting win condition. Hyuga, now you're probably wondering why I have Hyuga on here. Real quick, I'm going to put Hyuga in B tier. Hyuga, I still think, is a very, very threatening Murakumo deck. Because now that we have Shiryuki back at 4, God bless her souls, that's going to be cancer. It's going to basically screw over your opponent, because not only you return the entire board, all your units are getting plus 10,000, maybe plus 15,000 power if you're going with the right build. And with Shiryuki, you're minusing your opponent's Vanguard's power. You're basically just winning the game there. Hyuga is a great win condition. The only problem is you have to continuously ride with Hyuga. You don't even consider have to ride Hyuga, you just have to continuously ride and make sure you're on Hyuga by your finishing turn. If you're not on Hyuga, you basically lost the game, and that's the only reason why it's not as good as it could be. Isabel, I'm going to put at the C tier. Now, I'm going to put it higher up here in case that matters to you people, but I feel like Isabel, what is there to say about Isabel? Because we were excited when we were getting another Isabel, because this is one of Bushiroad's custom created cards that they made on their own. She isn't based on anything, and she has the whole lottery effect that Leopold, I forgot what his name is, that the first wave Great Nature had. But my problem with Isabel is that there's a lot of counterblasting in this deck. You don't have a suitable countercharger for the Isabel build. Now, you can run the Big Belly Isabel deck and just mix them together, but I feel like that's conflicting strategies that doesn't actually work out well. That's why I put Big Belly up here, because Big Belly has good enough support to keep the deck going. Isabel, you're relying too much. You really need to learn how to manage your counterblast, if that's what I'm trying to say. Because you can't, if you burn through too fast, you're left with no pressure, no opportunities, and no way to kill. So you need to play that deck very carefully, which some people just can't do. Next up, we have Lambros. I'm going to put Lambros in B tier. While it may not be the best Aquaforce deck, I still argue that Maelstrom is the best Aquaforce deck. It is definitely a very cool Aquaforce deck and can be very, very threatening if played well. The reason I put it in B tier is because the whole superior ride mechanic, I don't think works for Excel decks. I really don't think it works, because yeah, it's cool because now we had Gear Chronicle that did it, we have Royal Paladins that can do it, Kagero can do it to a degree, and we're now getting more and more to superior riding just to generate markers. But with Maelstrom be able to provide continuous pressure through Glory Maelstrom, or hell, even the new support, making him able to restand for free, basically. It's a lot more pressure than just Lambros standing a column. And sure, there are other cards you can mix that maybe make that stand more threatening, but all in all, it's not the most threatening deck I've ever seen. Next up is Luard. Luard is definitely S tier. We all know why Luard is S tier. I play Luard. I've posted videos about Luard. Luard deck profile I should upload. Next up we have Maelstrom. I'm actually going to put... I don't know where to put Maelstrom, because Maelstrom is a very, very good deck, but it can also be a very bad deck depending on the day. So, once again, I have a friend who plays Maelstrom who watches my videos who might argue with me about this, but I'm going to put him... I'm going to put him as a rogue deck. The reason I put him as a rogue deck is because there are two variants to the Maelstrom build now. One, you have your classic normal and glory Maelstrom build, or you can just go straight normal Maelstrom with the new support that lets them restand for free. And it's just, I feel like I said, it depends on the day when you play this deck, because the deck will either love you or hate you. I think we would know that from the videos I uploaded with me using the deck. But I feel like, how do I say this? Maelstrom is just a very iffy deck. It's very good when it works. It's only when it doesn't work for you that it's just not great. Now that can be said about any deck in the game, but it's all in all, I feel like it's a very good rogue deck. Plus, people are not expecting to play Maelstrom in this day and age. Even with the new support, it's still very weird for some people to see it. Now, next up we have Messiah. Messiah I'm going to put in B tier. Messiah has the same issue as Harry, because its only win condition is that big grade 4 40k that you can only call it when you bind it off the top first, which I think is seriously dumb. Not only did they not need a grade 4, but I feel like the whole 40k and you can only call it through binding it. It's just dumb. It's a very limiting win condition, just like Harry, except Harry's win condition is actually easier to get to than Messiah's, because all you need is one extra unit. You need RNG on your side to pull off Messiah's bullshit. But that's my 2 cents for Messiah. Don't get me wrong, it's a very good deck when it works, but it's no. Alright, Majesty Lord Blaster, I'm going to put at A tier. It could possibly be an S tier deck, but the problem with Majesty Lord Blaster is if your opponent is able to hit either as big or bigger numbers than you, you're in trouble. Majesty is you're supposed to create continuous pressure by absorbing 2 rear guards, stack your force markers, go for the critical and triple drive, and you're basically golden for the game. But with decks like Luard or Chrono Jet or Gurgwin in some instances, Gurgwin has multi-attacks more than it has big numbers, or fucking Eradicators. It's really gonna put the pressure on Majesty Lord Blaster, which it can't reciprocate with defense. It doesn't have very good survivability in those cases. It has more survivability than all these decks, but not as good as that one. Next up we have Mordred. Mordred I'm going to put in B tier. I'm sure people are wondering, is like, why are you putting Mordred here? The deck sucks. Yes and no. The deck can suck because it's a kind of a situational deck. But depending on your trigger lineup, this can be a very, very threatening deck. Because the way I run it with 12 crit. The reason I run it with 12 crit is because it builds up so much hand advantage on its own. So with 12 crit, you're over pressuring your opponent, and it's basically just crit sack the deck, basically, is how I play it. And I think it works very well. Next up is Night Rose. I'm going to put Night Rose in A tier. So Night Rose was a very iffy Grand Blue unit when it first came out, because people didn't really know what to do with it first. They didn't know if you're supposed to mix it with Cocytus or mix it with fucking... what's his name? I'll put a picture up here so you guys know what I'm talking about, but I forgot his name. Or mix it with the old grade 3, but since now the meta build for it is 4 Night Rose, 4 Skull Dragon, and blah blah blah, it's a very threatening deck because not only does it have multi-attackers / restanding, if you want to call it that, it's more multi-attack than restand, but it can create very big numbers of Skull Dragon, gain plus 2000 power for every card in your drop zone, plus you got the new Banshee that lets you draw and it gets plus 6000 power. It's a great deck all around, but it just can't keep up with these decks up here, which is the only reason why I put in A tier. No Ciel, I'm putting in Rogue tier because same thing for Ancient Dragons and Blouse. It's a very good triple rare base deck, and if you want to play Angel Feather, it's just a nice cheap way of doing it because these cards are not expensive at all, and you're getting a very good deck for what you're paying. Next up is Dragonic Overlord the X. I'm playing him right there because I thought, I'll be honest with you people, I thought Dragonic Overlord the X got power creeped as soon as Luar came out. And to a certain degree it did, but with how I underestimated the amount of pressure it can put up with 3 multi-attacks, the restanding heat shot dragon, so you're allowed to hit for consistent numbers, and all in all, Overlord, if it's not a threatening deck, it's a very big mind game deck. Because the whole thing with Overlord, at least from what I've noticed, is it'll hit for low numbers, so they're like, oh hey, I can easy guard this, let's put it for a 2 to pass. Then even if it gets just 1 trigger, it's going to restand off of the end scale with plus 10,000 power, and that's going to be terrifying, because that's an even bigger number. For Protect decks, they may not have to worry about this that much, because they can generate Sentinels and just block it at high hell. That's the only way I see the Overlord failing. Or if you're playing some kind of rush deck like Gurguit, who would rush the hell out of Overlord. But all in all, I still think Overlord is a very, very good deck that will live way past than it probably should. And it can still kill your opponent on grade 2, which is terrifying in itself. Luar doesn't do that anymore, thank God it doesn't. Even though I was part of that strategy, I really wanted to run the PBD Luar strat. But sadly, that's just not happening. Alright, Revan we're going to put in C tier. Revan for a while was the best deck of Standard when it came out. And I still don't understand how it was, because yeah, it was a nice deck. But it just wasn't great, because you had to rely on the grade 3 in your soul. And if you didn't hit, it had the Hyuga problem, because you just needed a grade 3 in your soul and you need to ride Hyuga. You need to finish on Hyuga. With Revan, you need to ride grade 3 and somehow finish on Revan. But I feel like Revan is a nice niche deck. I'm actually put him higher because I know this matters to some people. I'm putting him higher up here because he's a very fun deck now. He's not as good as he once was, and if you really want to have fun with him, try running him with Blue Wings. It's very fun. Rising Nova, that's fine right there. I'm gonna put him in B tier because I think Rising Nova. I posted a video about with me playing the deck. I don't play Rising Nova like other people play Rising Nova. What you're supposed to do, Rising Nova, you're supposed to play Rising Nova, play the Restander, and Bull Spike, I think his name is. I'll put a picture up here too in case you know what I'm talking about. I think most of you do know what I'm talking about anyway, but just to be sure. And with that build alone, you get Force 1 and get Force 2, and you throw that around all your units. My deck relies more on rewriting with Rising Nova, which honestly isn't that big of a deal. But I feel like Rising Nova is just a very good Spike Brothers deck, and we're also getting Dudley back in the Clan Selection Plus, which I think will take Spike Brothers to the new tier that it needs to be. Next up we have Scarot. Scarot I'm going to put in S tier actually. I think this is the best Protect deck of 2020. Now, argue with me if you will, but yes, Scarot is just Mordred in Dark to Regular form, and yeah, I can see why that's a problem for some people because the gimmick. And sure, it isn't soul charged like we thought it would. It'd just be big soul charges with big payouts, big power boosts. But with how Scarot works, and with the combination it has with Number of Terror, you are generating 10 to like 18 card hands while hitting for big numbers. Well, you're attacking essentially 5 times. And it's almost retarded how good this deck is. With how stupid good this deck is. Because it's not as great as the others, because Luard will turtle it out and beat it. Overlords can provide continuous pressure. Gurgi will rush it to high hell. All your shit's gonna get bound with Eradicators, and Chrono Jet will just do Chrono Jet. But I feel like Scarot is a very good deck. Very good deck because it beats Asha, it beats Big Belly, definitely beats Blade Master, definitely beats Gaia, it beats all of these. Especially Majesty Lord Blaster. It's a shame how much that deck shits on it. Next we have Shirnui. Shirnui, I have a Shirnui deck. I have a Shirnui deck in build right now. I'm trying to build it. Cause if some of you don't know, my first deck of Cardfight Vanguard, my first Stride deck, if you will, when it wasn't Liberators, it was Shirnui. And I loved the deck so much, so when I heard Shirnui's come back, I was like, yes! Now, we didn't get the domination tactic like we did last time, because let's be honest, if we had domination in this format, it would be broken. Instead, we got the Mask of Domination, which is just so bad. I don't care who you are. It is so bad. Because you don't get any unplaced abilities. You can only activate rear guard abilities, and you can't activate Vanguard abilities, there's only so much good generic stuff you can bind from your opponent's rearguard circle or drop zone that you can use. At that point, you're just getting it for extra drive checks, but you don't get the extra drive checks until you rewrite a shit ton of times with Shiranui until it's good. I have a lot of issues with this deck, and honestly, I might make a video just a video all in itself talking about how Bushi needs to fix this deck. They need to make an errata to the rules for the Mask of Domination token, because it should be allowed to copy Vanguard Circle only skills. Like for Platina, if I bind Platina from your drop zone, I should be able to use the skills whether it's Vanguard or Rearguard. Simple as that. Because if I can't do that, and I can't even activate on-placed skills, it's not worth it at all. Next up is Susanoo. Susanoo I'm putting in the rogue tier, because I feel like while Shara is the best protect deck, I feel like Susanoo is the most consistent protect deck I've ever seen. Because not only are you adding a shit ton of cards to your hand, this is another protect deck that makes very good use of the crit sentinel, because you don't need to run Miss Mist for damage denial. Because not only are you generating protect markers just through writing, you're also drawing a lot of cards. Who's texting me? If you mix Susanoo with OG Amaterasu and the new Amaterasu, it's a very threatening deck. The only problem is, for some reason, it just can't kill. As much as it tries, it just, for some reason, easily blockable. I don't know what the issue is. It's just very weird. Next up is Vanguard. I'm playing S tier deck, because this is also Narukami. Narukami's just broken with the multi-attacking with full Bronto that we have now, and the binding is just, oh my, this deck is very, very threatening, and I feel bad for anyone who has to face it. Venus Luquier, I'm gonna put Venus Luquier in, I'm gonna put an A tier, solely because now that we have Dorian back at 4, you don't need to run the other, you don't need to run base version Luquier just to fill up your grade 3 spot. You can run Venus Luquier and Dorian and have a nice, very Silverthorn based deck. I think it's very useful. I think it's a very good multi-attacker deck. Puts up a lot of pressure, especially with the dragon. All in all, I think it's a very nice deck. Sure, it can probably get beat out by some of these decks below it on an off day, maybe. But other than that, eh. The last two decks, I'm going to put... Victor is going to go at B, because I feel like, well, Victor can provide a... it can provide some interesting pressure with its triple drive mechanic. I don't feel like it's good, given I've never seen... Actually, I have seen Victor in action. I've seen videos on it. I've never played Victor myself. I just don't think it's a good deck. I don't think it's that good. Sure, it'll win you matches for you here and there, more than Claret will or freaking Shiranui will. I just don't think it puts up that much pressure, but while it doesn't put up much pressure, it's better than these decks. Yasui was a disappointment. No more needs to be said. Now, that is my tier list for Cardfight Vanguard 2020. Now, we also have to see what Vanguard brings us to 2021. And let me know what you think of this tier list. I'm sure I probably pissed a lot of people off. But let me know where you put some stuff. I'm sure some of you would switch some of this around. I know Tachi players would probably put Gaia up in S tier. Now we have Anger Blader back at 4 copies. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you do, don't forget to hit that like button. When you hit that like button, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. When you hit that subscribe button, don't forget to that notification bell. Notification bell lets you get notified every time I upload a new video. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and I will see you guys in the new year. Bye-bye.